Good afternoon, Patreon subscribers and followers. This is Eric Mertz. I wanted to take a moment today to talk to you a little bit about The Lamplighter, which is the first story in my Midnight Reporter Patreon, as well as the series in general and just kind of where we're going to go from this story. So first off, the Lamplighter. This story has a really interesting sort of like how I got to this version of the story. I'm a big fan of Kolchak, the Night Stalker, which is an old TV series. If you haven't watched it, it's really great. It's kind of campy 70s sort of paranormal mystery detective stuff. It's really good. I saw a listing for an anthology that was doing short stories in the Kolchak world, and I thought, hey, this would be great. And I had this idea about this kind of corrupt mission, so I wrote this story first for that anthology. Now, of course, like every other author, when the story was rejected, I was beside myself. I was like, what, how can you reject my great story? But as time went on and of course, I get that story back, for me, I thought this would be a great sort of introductory story for a series. I don't know. I knew that kind of instinctively. And so as it turned out, as I started working on this Midnight Reporter series in my head, I thought this story would be a perfect, introduction. I liked it because it kind of sets the tone, right? Like Gilbert Sandoval is he's a reporter. He's doing his job as a reporter, but he's also interested in kind of following up on some of the darker corners and some of the, the creepier stories that nobody else wants to tell. He's willing to push. He's willing to go the extra mile. I really thought that was a cool way to introduce a character, and that's who Gilbert Sandoval is. He's a reporter. He's determined to get a story, and he's willing to do anything. He's willing to do anything. And in this story, it shows that the character is, Gilbert Sandoval is willing to kind of go outside of his story beat. He's willing to go outside of his job description. He's willing to, even dress up like a transient and spend the night in a creepy old mission in downtown Boise, Idaho to figure out what's going on. So I really thought this was a great way to introduce the character as the sort of main character in a series. Again, I think it just sets up who Gilbert Sandoval is. And the real reason I wanted to do this series in general, this kind of mini series, is that I think it really supports the Strange Air stories in a cool way. When we meet Sandoval in the Strange Air stories, he's a believer. He's a fully formed believer in the paranormal. He believes there is something going on out there. He believes there is more than we can see with our own two eyes, that science has proven for us. He's a definite believer. And I really love the stories about how the believer came to believe, right? What was their path? Did they start out as a skeptic and became a believer? Did they start out uncertain and they kind of walked the fence until they, were pushed over the line? What was their path to belief? I think that's to me, an inherently interesting story. And that's what I wanted this Midnight Reporter series to be. So we're going to follow Sandoval from the moment, this kind of when this story starts, he's a skeptic. And as he gets deeper into the story, as he gets into the mission, as he gets into that tunnel, he's still a skeptic. And at the end, this is the beginning of his path to belief. By the time we meet him and he becomes August Melville's sidekick in Whistler's Grove, he's a full-on believer. And he's, in fact, one of the catalysts for making Melville believe that something bigger is going on. So that's the thrust of the series, right? That's the path this series is going to follow. We're going to follow in this sort of episodic way, through a series of episodic novellas. We're going to learn the path that Gilbert Sandoval follows on his way to going from skeptic to believer. So the next story that comes out, it'll come out later this week, called Bone Fragments, is really the first story that gets them into the main action. This story is kind of a standalone. It's just an episode. But what starts in Bone Fragments is you'll follow that mystery throughout the series. From that moment on, Sandoval's on the path of something bigger. That happens in Bone Fragments. And I really, really like that story. It was a fun one. It's another one when I do that video. I wrote that story about, it was for something else, and then I kind of like fit it into this because I liked the story, I liked the story enough that I wanted to keep it moving. So I hope you like that story too. That story comes out on this Friday, May 2nd. So again, I hope you get a chance to read that. If you're a follower, thank you very much. Please subscribe. Every bit helps. Keep this journey alive, and you'll get every story and every video from here on out. If you're already a subscriber, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.